everybody, back again on another episode or another segment of Mike's On 2. As you know, this year's Mike's On is all about millennials, impact, culture, and stories. And we have an amazing lineup for everyone. Najaf Bilgrami is one of them, one of the individuals who's taken out the time. Najaf, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Najaf is a storyteller by profession. He's a writer, he's a filmmaker, he's an actor, he's a director, and also he has a deep background in academics around filmmaking. He teaches at Zabist as well. And Najaf, how about you actually elaborate a little bit about your background, about what you've done?
Okay. I'm going to tell a bit about my as to the necessity that was or is about telling stories. It's the age-old sentence that you get to hear, "Bachpan se shauk tha." Yeah, in my case, I don't know if it was shock, but it was a necessity. I have to tell a story. It was like an alien bursting out of the chest. Uh, I had to tell a story ever since I could remember. So whatever that was required to tell a story, whatever skill that was required to be able to forward an effective narrative. So going towards film was a natural progression. I did, my bit of theater. I used to write plays and put up productions at family occasions. Nazar Niyaz, Eid Bakr were not spared. they were they were always the family members knew that there's going to be that odd moment in this whole festive event. There's going to be an odd moment when there's a 9-year-old who's going to put up he's going to announce that he's got a show lined up, and then they would all have to just sit over there and watch him
And clap very seriously. Not kill any spirits.
So my father used to help me out in that. He was very encouraging. He's the one who introduced me to cinema. And when years later, when I was during the early 90s, when the channels had not been privatized, but there were the private production scene happening. NTM, STN, Shalimar Recording Company, had opened up its own beam, which was, partly owned by the government, but was privatized. It was not PTV. PTV, things were breaking away from PTV and was getting the media was entering its first phase of privatized enterprise. So I was part of Combine, and I was to somebody outside, it would look as if that I'm being exploited. I was a 18-year-old kid who used to go and write. I used to write for TV shows, and anybody would say, "Okay, this kid is being exploited by these people." And my father would just look at me and say, "It's all my doing. I deserve it because I introduced him to a kind of cinema that maybe an 11-year-old should not have been exposed to." I saw films like Lawrence of Arabia, which is if you watch, my father's favorite film was Dr. Zhivago and Lawrence of Arabia. His favorite film director was David Lean, who became my favorite director. It was my initiation to cinema was David Lean's cinema. The classic big 70mm big Vista Vision cinema. Yeah. With sweeping landscapes and score, Maurice Jarre's score, and Freddie Young's cinematography. So it's the classic Hollywood cinema that's a very good stepping stone if you want to appreciate cinema. So I was introduced, and for an 11-year-old, and if you watch multiple screenings, it's not that the first time you just watch it once. So in the first viewing, Lawrence of Arabia comes across, as a big Hollywood film with good-looking people and great cinematography. But when you delve into the heart of the matter, it's a very disturbing film. It's about a person who's not exactly balanced, and
Mm-hmm.
especially today, what's happening in the world. That was the start of the conflict of what is happening in the region, in the Middle Eastern region.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, what's happening in Israel, and
Yeah.
the rightful demand for a free state of Palestine.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, what T. Lawrence did was the very basis of that.
Yeah.
It started from there.
Yeah.
The British involvement, and if you so my father made us understand the conflict in the Middle East through that film,
Mm-hmm.
and he's realized that in order to make something as permanent, a conflict which is 1,000 years old, and if you want to cross and get a definitive line stretch across that region, you have to be this mad. You have to invest that much of madness into it. And T.
Mm-hmm.
Lawrence was mad. His level of ambition was not like that of a common man.
Mm-hmm.
He was not after money. He was not after possessions. He was
Yeah.
after something else. So
Mm-hmm.
whether right or wrong, what my father instilled, that if you want to get something, you have to be this mad. You have to be this passionate. You have to invest that much amount of your own self
Mm-hmm.
into whatever you want to cover.
Right.
So for 11-year-old, it's too much.
Yeah.
It would do things to you
Yeah.
if you are made to watch that film, and then that kind of, and now that my now after, I mean, it's been many years. I think back. I think my father was driven by
Mm-hmm.
that, what do you call it? Madness? If you want to call it madness, you can call it madness, or passion. Passion, you can call it passion. But it was his drive, that the way I am understanding the cinema, they need to understand the cinema exactly in the same spirit, in the
Mm-hmm.
same vein.
Yeah. It's
So
very powerful. It's a very powerful tool also. And
yeah,
I'm actually going to, sorry I'm butting in, but I'm gonna change the order of questions, and because you brought this note up. This what Lawrence of Arabia was for you was basically your first exposure into
yeah,
a very relevant and a very deep rooted uh, you can call it a chapter in history, just for the lack of
yeah.
a better term. And
No,
now, with so much media out there, with so many different avenues available, so many means of creating content as well, stories are on one side. Even the word stories now is like, one generation will think, are you talking about the 10-second clips that you put up on Instagram? And another generation will think that it's a novel, it's a book, it's about what's being passed on from generation to generation. So for you, what is the story that people need to be seeing, or what is a story that resonates with you that you feel needs to be told in this country, especially?
in this country, what needs to be? That's a very it's a difficult question to answer, uh, but it's a very important question. What's more important, as story wise? What's more important for us as countrymen at this juncture in our complicated history? Is that am I getting it right? That
Hmm.
uh,
What is
that
the
what is
story?
more important? And well, I think, let me understand this question, or let me receive this question in a different angle. Uh, in order to be able to effectively tell a story, regardless of what medium, and regardless whether you want to tell it through TikTok or you want to tell it through a 90-minute, three-act structure, feature-length film.
Hmm.
Regardless, I think the reason, I'm going to go a little forward, and I'm going to assume the reason we have not been able to do it effectively, that it takes us 26 episodes to think that we have effectively unloaded ourselves, that we have fully and told a story in its entirety. We think that 26 episode From 26 episode, what I mean is 26 episode is the usual length of a TV serial
Mm-hmm.
on any private channel. Previously, when it was state controlled, it used to be only 13 episodes. So people were effectively telling stories in 13 episodes. Now it takes 26 episodes, and I think they still fail. They are not able to tell it effectively in even 26 episodes. I think the problem is we are unable to uh, listen to a story. There is a very acute shortage of stamina to receive a story. And I think if you do not know how to listen to a story, you will never be able to learn to tell that story. You will never be able to appreciate as to what should be the effective. It's not about the duration. It's
Mm-hmm.
always about that you have to respect the structure, whether it's being told in 10 seconds or it's being told in 90 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
You have to respect that there has to be either you are going by the three act structure. Could you excuse me for 1 minute? Can
Yeah.
you just excuse me for 1 minute?
Okay. It's
So,
recorded.
uh, so you have to respect. I mean, if you've decided that you tell the story in three act structure, effectively, if you are respecting the agreed upon rules of telling the story in a three act structure way, you should be able to tell a story effectively. That is just the mechanics of it.
Mm-hmm.
Unless and until it is something which is part of your soul, if the story and if the happening in that story, if it is not part of your soul, if it is not extremely important to get it out of your system, don't bother. Do not bother. If it is
Mm-hmm.
something that it's something oh, you know what, this story these days, this topic is hot. If you tell a story about Kandil Baloch, she got killed in mysterious circumstances. If you make a film on her right now, it will sell like hotcake. Don't
Mm-hmm.
don't story, because if you're attaching it to a reason which is outside your system, then it's not a reason enough. It
Mm-hmm.
has to be, it has to come from within, and it's an abstract notion. It's a completely abstract notion. It could
Mm-hmm.
be something which is age old, something which has been discussed before, something which has been done before, something which has been done by bigger, better filmmakers, and yet you feel that you have a different perspective on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, go for it. Go for it. If you feel that if you don't do it, uh, your own growth as a human being will be stunted if you don't
Mm-hmm.
get it out of it. So it has to be that important.
And there's this level
It
of
has,
patience that has to come with it as well. Before
yeah,
I feel that before you even dive into challenging the way things are being done, you first have to understand how they've been done. But then you also have to give it that respect, and you have to acknowledge the work that has been created in the past for you to
yeah.
challenge how things can go in the way forward.
You have to be a hermit if you are committing yourself to the life of filmmaker, to be specific. Um, it's not, well, people have this notion when I was dealing with students who who are now in the age group of, like, now they're turning uh 20 25 26. Now they would be 26, 25, 27. When I was dealing with them, they were 21, 22
Mm-hmm.
at Zabist. They would get into this field thinking that this is a very current way of explaining themselves. This is what who they are, and it's and they are very they have this notion that it's a very glamorous, sexy life.
Mm-hmm.
That you're your own person, you are your own enterprise. You are the studio, you are the filmmaker, you are the artist.
Yeah.
You are the editor, you are the cinematographer. You got a small little smart camera that shoots 4K, and you got your laptop, and that's it. That's all you need. Natural light, yourself, and you're gonna make these videos, um, and you're gonna make this video and you're gonna put them up, and YouTube will start paying you.
Mm.
And then some crazy filmmaker will see them and say, you got real talent, and pick you up and will help you make your film.
Mm.
Mm, it doesn't happen that way, because you're doing it with something that you've seen or assume that's it's going to happen. Uh,
Mm.
it doesn't happen that way because of the fact that there are many reasons. I'll go by the most obvious one. The most First of all, there is no enterprise here.
Mm.
Um, there is no. You got the laptop from somebody funded it, right? Somebody, your parents funded it, and you are sustaining yourself based on somebody's providing the budget for it.
Mm.
So there's no enterprise. Secondly, there is you're more in love with the equipment, and the functioning of the equipment, the tools that you have. That you are more interested in the tracking shot, in the swiping cutaways, and the you're not interested in getting in touch with your own self
Mhm.
as to the dilemma that you're living off on somebody, uh, and what is happening around you.
Mhm.
You live in Karachi. Karachi is a big, huge story. To tell the story around you, you don't need to have an expensive laptop as your edit machine. You don't have to have a Mac. You don't have to have a Sony Alpha camera.
Mm.
You just need to have something. You can just borrow it off from people. The film school exhibits will provide you the camera. The most important thing is you have to ask yourself as to what story you're saying, what story you're telling, and why you are doing that. Why
Mhm.
it's so important for you to tell that story.
Mhm.
Um, what is actually happening in the story comes later. That's not a secondary question, but certainly comes later.
Mhm.
You should know as to why it is important for you to make that story. You should not be making that story because you think that, oh, it will look cool. It will look very cool when I cut this shot with this shot and I'll have music on it. Then you're going in the music video territory.
Mm.
And music videos are essentially ads.
Mm.
They are commissioned by recording studios, labels, to promote the music,
Mm.
to help sell uh, DVDs when DVDs were a thing.
Mhm.
But it's not filmmaking.
Yeah. So I have a
Did
question
that?
for you, Najaf, around because it's very interesting so far. You've spoken about, and there's a lot of hidden messages around what you've been saying, and that mostly comes from your experience over the years as well. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think when we were talking, you mentioned that you entered this space in the mid '90s or something, right?
Yeah.
um, and you started off as a writer, and that was that was more of a fulfilling task for your soul rather than for your pocket.
I
Um, yeah, but
I was
I
them. I was employed at four 4,000 a month. I was getting paid. I used to work at. I had left studies after intermediate. I had left my studies, and I got employed at my cousin's ad firm. Had a small ad firm. They used to make Ciba Geigy had these pesticides, so they used to make the labels of
Mhm.
that of the pesticides,
Mhm.
and they had a artist used to make those labels, and I used to assist that guy. So basically, I used to make tea for the office. I was a tea boy. I started from there. I was getting paid 2,700 rupees a month, and that
Mhm.
used to be a lot of money for me at that time. Used to have used to have difficulty spending that money, and then I one day there was this show called Middle Channel Charts back in the 90s, which was a huge deal at that time. It was like we didn't have MTV, and that was the closest that we had to Desi MTV. And because of that program, there was an explosion of bands that were already there, but they suddenly overnight they came into mainstream. bands like Collage and Fringe Benefits, Salim Jaffrey, Sajjad Ali was already there.
Mm-hmm.
He's doing his bit, but all these they were a part of the um uh, underground culture of Karachi, and it suddenly, like in overnight, they became mainstream.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a big deal. That show was a big deal at that time in
Mm-hmm.
the 90s. And the producer of that show showed up at my doorstep because him and me had a mutual friend, and he showed up at my house and said, "We want a writer to write the show, and we want to do a musical TV serial that we
Mm-hmm.
want the privatized TV channel to NTM to want to sell it as 7 episodes." So I wrote that. So I became of that company called Combined. I became the staff writer,
Mm-hmm.
and my pay was 4,000, which was a huge shift from 2,700
Yeah,
to 4,000. Was a huge. I was like, wow, this is great. I'm hitting the big times.
you're balling now.
Uh,
Yeah, it's
and
high.
I'm the new kid on the block. I'm the hot shot,
Yeah.
and never cared about how much. And there were people around me who were being hired, and they were getting more money than I was. They were
Mm-hmm.
being hired for 25,000, 27,000, 50,000. I was getting 4,000. Then eventually I caught up and said, "Hey, wait a minute, you're paying me 4,000. This guy's getting paid 25." So they bumped my pay, and then I very quickly I went private. I said, "No, I'll do this job. You pay me for that thing. I don't have to come every day
Mm-hmm.
because I start getting work from other people."
Mm-hmm.
I became enterprising very early on. What I'm trying to say is, the money part never mattered because because what was happening is that I was writing for a show which was at that time which was at the cutting edge of popular culture, and I was writing a show which employed what was being established by that show:
Mm-hmm.
bands and concerts and popular music in Pakistan, in Karachi, in Lahore, in Islamabad. Whatever that show was establishing, we were writing the narrative device of that story was the byproduct of that show.
Mm-hmm.
So it was for me that was it was enough. It
Mm-hmm.
was more than enough. I was barely keeping up with what was in, entrusted onto me, to let alone think about the money that I was being paid for that thing. That was the last thing on my mind. I just wrote, and I saw movies, and I read, and I said we could do this thing, we can do that thing. And I was 19 years old at that time. Uh, a friend of mine had given me a VHS of the studio cut of Blade Runner, which had the narration on it. So um, this was it was released in 91. The studio version was re-released in 91, and then in 90, I think 98, they released the director's cut, which didn't have the narration. So I was completely in love with Blade Runner. Could not think, and having watched uh, David Lean, and from David Lean I graduated to Spielberg, and from there I jumped to Ridley Scott.
Mm-hmm.
So the writing, and I kept wondering as to how there were scenes and shots that had no dialogue. I would say, how would you write something which doesn't have dialogues? How would you write that into it? And when you read the script, how would you know that this is what it's conveying? So I was getting at that time. I was getting to grips with the fact that the narrative doesn't need to move forward with the help of dialogues.
Mm-hmm.
What screenwriting is, that it is basically visuals telling the story, and the whole art of screenwriting um, is that you need to convey a message or convey a feeling with just visuals,
Mm-hmm.
and the juxtaposition of so basically it's not important um, as to what the character is feeling. What the character is doing should be reflecting what he or she is going through. So
Mm-hmm.
that was a point when I was started to feel that, because Blade Runner was purely about the juxtaposition of the character standing in the frame and the music being played, and that's it, and the feeling that you got
Mm-hmm.
out of that.
Now,
Most of the time, but they were talking about stuff which had nothing to do with the scene. The story
mhm.
was being moved forward because of something else. So anyway, you're saying something.
So like these, you got to this point because of just being very persistent, also, and being um, it was your passion that actually led you forward
Yeah,
throughout, and taking these steps forward. So like, because you also teach, and you've worked with the three major generation categories right now, right? From millennials, Gen Zs, and even boomers as well, right?
yeah.
So have you noticed, so this is actually a two-part question that I'll ask you. Have you noticed some patterns amongst their behaviors that also motivated you, or that you felt that was missing? And also, do you feel that those that ended up doing work that they felt good about, or that when they achieved when they achieved a high level of progress, or any sort of achievement, was that because of some obsessive behavior? What is your take on this?
The differentiation between let's just say, I'm 45 right now, so I represent the um, the generation before the millennials, or am I a
Yes.
millennial? Because I'm the before, right?
For millennials, yes. So it's the
Okay.
26 to the 40s that are millennials.
I'm going to start with the millennials, because they were the ones who got into this business right after we came in. When we came in, we were doing it for the love of it. Obviously, we had to be doing it for the love, because there was no money at that time. Anybody who came in was somebody who, for them, money was not the issue, either because they didn't care about money, or either because of the fact that it was their family business. A lot of them were in this business because it was family business. So, like the Ghazanfars and like the Tahir Khans, they were sitting in the advertising world, uh, or they're coming from PTV, and they're breaking away from PTV and doing it in a private, doing it in a privatized enterprise. Um, so, so obviously, you had to be. That was not the primary concern. The ones that came right after it were they came in. They had a different reason to come in. So that's why their progression was different, because they came in because when it became a viable, when it started to become a viable means of earning money. So they came in right off that, and that was during the mid 90s, late 90s, when we saw it on the horizon that yes, I think there will be channels coming up. Geo hadn't come up at that time. I think Indus was about to happen, and we knew the channels are happening. Channels going to happen. There are people who will be putting in money, and they'll go for their own. So 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 the so I think the reason was different. The different reason for so there's a clear differentiation between people who came in. So they were more focused. They were more enterprising than us. They didn't had lofty ideas. They knew that they had to go from point A to point Z. They have to earn money, and after they've earned money, after they've made themselves economically viable, then they will go for things which are passion will come later. You have to have a financial foundation first. It was quite the opposite with us, because when we came in, um, I remember when I was pursuing writing at Combined, my mother used to say, she would sit me down and say, okay, it's time you get a job. And said, no, I already have a job. And said, no, I know you have a job, and I know you like this thing, doing this thing, but you really have to get a job. And I said, no, mom, I have, this the news article. and they've written about me, and this is what I do. And she said, it's fine, this is great, but get a job. And she just clearly didn't get it. She,
They expected
she
security,
yeah,
conventional profession.
and that's what was important for her. And uh, it if we when we were instilled that, hey, that listen, you're doing this thing for passion, this will never earn you money. There were careers who started and ended in that age when, um, like for example, I'll tell you the names: Rahat Kazmi, Talat Hussain, Shakil. They are all these big, huge stars that PTV produced, and they never saw the golden age of their golden age was they were completely amateur. They never turned professional actors. They always had a day job as
Hmm.
a either as a they had their businesses, or they were civil servants, or they were doctors, or they were engineers. And then during the evening, they would go for rehearsals, and they would take a break from their day job, record it, record a serial, and they were recognized all over, not just in Pakistan but all over the world. But they were essentially actors who were amateurs. They
Hmm.
were not doing it. I mean, this was not their livelihood.
Part time.
It was all part time.
Hmm.
All of them, Tavi Khan, and so the ones, so they started earning professionally after the advent of privatized channels. So to say the difference between us and the millennials is the difference between the age of PTV and the age of Geo and ARY and Hum TV. That it may have the focus on the spirit of storytelling is less, but to say that the economic viability is not there, that would be wrong.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, an actor is more economically viable. A TV producer is more economically viable, and there's a lot more enterprise. So I'm not
Hmm.
shooting down the idea that there is that, oh, it's the most common thing that you get to hear is कि पीटीवी के ड्रामे बड़े अच्छे होते थे, हम वैसे ड्रामे नहीं बनाते. Well, अगर आप वैसे ड्रामे बनाएंगे तो you will not be able to earn money.
Hmm.
That's a sad part.
Hmm.
Uh, you have to turn commercial. You know,
Hmm.
even at that time, in India, people watched PTV plays, and they loved what we were producing at that time. All those plays by Banu Qudsiya, Ashfaq Ahmed, Anu Sajjad. But Amar Akbar Anthony used to make big bucks at the box office.
Hmm.
Let's not forget that, because the common denominator, they would not understand Camus, and they would not understand Sartre, and they would not understand Banu Qudsiya.
Hmm.
They would understand Prakash Mehra's Amar Akbar Anthony. It's a ridiculous film. it's a hit. It's a ridiculous film.
Yeah.
Yeah. Same Salman Khan's cinema. Same as Shah Rukh Khan's cinema. Same thing.
Yeah. It's like the
Sorry, did I don't think I did I digress or
no, no,
did
no,
I answer?
not at all. This is a great answer actually because it's about also how the perceptions change as well over time.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I wanted to get into next is that there's this so me being from a completely uncreative background of economics and finance.
There's no such
Uh,
thing as that, by the way.
Thank you very much. I
There's no
do
such
kind
thing
of
as
feel the same
uncreative.
concept.
And I know you've got economics as your background, right? You've got a degree in
Yeah,
economics. Economics is amazingly creative. The little that I know about economics,
yeah,
it's yeah. If
yeah.
anything to do with mathematics, man,
Yes.
anything with mathematics, numbers
I'll
has
call
to be
you into
creative.
the office one day so you can explain this to people as well as that. I'm not a joke right now.
Would love that. Would love that. Would love that.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
I've noticed one thing is that um, you have these big corporations like let's just take a few names like Shell, ho gaya, McDonald's, ho gaya, Angro, Nike, and so on. And I'm not going to go into a battle of how these corporations are working and what they've done in the past and what dirty business they're up to. But there's this generation, the Gen Z, that feels that they um, that they should be defying these structures, that they should be defying these corporations, that they should be defying the way. things have happened conventionally to go out and create their own impact. And that impact comes from feeling the need to either start off their own business to make a change, or that could be to, create a legal entity to fight these corporations in the first place. Or that impact could also be to push uh, their own beliefs out there to the world, like something as simple as even work-life balance, right? Impact is trying to be created in all in many different ways and around different narratives altogether. Um, what do you feel is the impact that this generation is trying to make in your industry, or how do you feel that they are also trying to push back in your space?
My experience with the age group, the so-called Generation Z, the age group is now in their what? They're
18
in
to
their
24.
20. Yeah, I encountered them as students at Zabas or at Indus. Um, I'm going to continue with what I was explaining back there about the people who came after us, the millennials, uh, and after that the Gen Z followed, and it again, it has to do with how you look at it. The people who came after us, they saw something which we were doing and say, "You're doing it wrong, Grandpa. We'll tell you how to do it." And they did teach us how to do it, and we were tutored by them, and they tutored, and rightfully so. They tutored. They were more structured, and they were more focused, and we learned a lot from them. Uh, and the people who came after them, by that time, it had become a commodity. It was not something which was a communal activity that you were always at the receiving end of. It had, by that time, it had become a commodity. Entertainment, or the practicing of media, the advent of Facebook and Instagram, the people who consume it, people who are at the receiving end of it, are the practitioner as well. So if they think that we have a better idea of how to practice it and what branding is, and we should be tutoring people who make brands, well, shouldn't they think that way? Because you've given them the tools. You give them a camera, a phone which has a camera which is 4K. It shoots slow motion. So if a girl or a boy with really long hair has got wet hair and he goes like this, I can't do this because I don't have hair. So, and they record it at 120 frames per second on the phone, it looks like that it's a shot right out of a commercial. And I have seen commercials which actually have been shot on an iPhone. So why should when you give them the tools, why should they not think? Because they do not have the they do not have they have not spent time being disappointed by the machinery of life.
Hmm.
So they are like, oh, we can do it, easy peasy. It's a
Hmm.
cakewalk. We can do this, and we can tell them that this is not who they are. We'll define them as to what they are. And the fact is that they are the buying power, aren't they
Hmm.
not? I mean, they are the ones who are spending money, not their own, their dad's money, but they are the ones who are out there. They are participating more in life.
Hmm.
So if they think that way, I don't blame them.
Hmm.
However, my experience of with them is that they're lousy team players. I mean, I can go on in a very lengthy explanation, where I can cut to the chase. And they're lousy team players. Since it's such a uh, egocentric way of looking at things, that, oh, no, I can do this better, that they lack perspective.
Hmm.
And teamwork is nothing but perspective and perception about yourself.
Hmm.
You should have a very you should not be somebody who lies to your own self. You should know who you are, your limitations and your capabilities.
Hmm.
I can do this thing and I can do this as well, but the other person can do this thing that I can do better than me.
Mm.
So I have to work with that person. I can shoot. I can shoot and direct. I'm a cinematographer and I'm a director. But if I'm shooting something for 3 months straight, chances are that I'll get tired doing both the jobs together. I better take on a cinematographer who I can teach that this is what I want. And I have to learn to work with him. And to think that I will use him as a drone, that I will use him as my puppet, wrong, wrong, wrong. When he comes on board or she comes on board, she and he will bring their own ideas, and you have to work with their way of working, and you
Mm.
have to incorporate their ideas. Filmmaking is a collaborative art. You have to you have to move. I mean, your editor will, and you'll be surprised. Most of the time, they have a better idea than yours. So what comes out at the very end of it has a print on it, but the DNA has many chromosomes of all those different other people, and it makes the whole thing a lot more dynamic, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so anyway, what I'm trying to say is that what these people lack is that they I think what you call Generation Z is should be called a phase, that when they will, right now they are at an age which is like, from 18 to 20, right? And by the time they will be 30, they will have a different take on the whole thing, because they
Mm.
will wisen up and say, not everything would be can be done by us. Not everything could be. आपका दिमाग खराब होगा अगर आपके पास एक ऐसा कैमरा आ जाएगा which is so easy to use and produces amazing results, and apps which you just have to drop the clip and it will edit by itself.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody, I would think this way at this age. I would say, okay, I don't need to have collaborators. Why do I have to take collaborative? Why do I have to make this whole
Mm.
enterprise so human resource heavy?
Yeah.
I can just have two assistant myself and somebody to carry my bags, and that's it. I can have a very small crew. I can travel around the world, make an amazing kick ass of a travel log, sell it to Discovery Channel by just having three people. No, it doesn't work that way. I
Mm.
wish it did. It doesn't work that way,
Mm.
because a lot more. It's not just the sound recording. It's not just the data wrangling. It's not just the booking of the flight. It's not just the producer, sound recorders, and editor. You need a lot more going in order for that show to be dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
So uh, I think they will reach this conclusion. I think they will reach that conclusion that they have to that they will have to take on more people. They will have to listen to other people. It doesn't move forward. This thing doesn't move forward
Mm.
individually.
Yeah.
Yeah, in writing you can do that. Even in writing, if you're writing a novel, you have to have a very good editor who reads your manuscript and says, this doesn't make any sense. Even in art forms which are famously reclusive and solitary enterprises, like sculpture and like painting,
Mm-hmm.
there are mentors. There are people who that and you have to get out of your own shell, go out there, look at things, observe things, and then bring that experience back to your studio and then paint or sculpt with that perspective. So you have to interact.
Yeah.
You have to, in order to have perspective. So what I'm trying to say that, and I'm not trying to put them down, but I think it will the laws according to which the Gen Z operates will eventually, as they will progress into life, they will remain there. They will retain their identity, that they are fiercely individual, that they're very professional, and obviously the technology that is now coming up will help them retain their identity of theirs, but they will also at the same time take on things from the generation before them, and they will not remain strictly the way they are right now. With
Mm.
age, they will change their modus operandi.
No, I like it's a very you acknowledged both sides
Yeah.
to the coin, right? They have access to um, resources which can elevate their skill level, but their skill is nothing without humility and
No,
acceptance for one another,
no,
which is
no.
what drives it forward at the end of the day.
Like giving an example of, let's say they have to, like, it's very easy to make a, it's very difficult to make a film with a 3 people crew.
Hmm.
It is doable to make a travelogue in which you have to travel. Let's say you have to go from Karachi to Vietnam
Hmm.
and stop at 3 to 5 cities. Like, you first city is Colombo. From Colombo you go to Dhaka. From Dhaka you go to, Bangkok. From Bangkok you go to, so all these cities you're going to Far East, and you make a travel show, and you can have a 3 people crew, right? And it is possible to do that if you are in the age group of, let's say, 1890. You are economically, you are low maintenance. You can sleep on the platforms, you can take trains, and you're rugged.
Yeah.
But the thing is that that show will have less of a perspective because you haven't read that much. You have not experienced life in your own country. I mean, you haven't lived much. You have lived only 20 years as opposed to 50 years or 45 years. So you do not know. So when you go to that city, you cannot compare it to where you're coming from.
Hmm.
You go to Vietnam and say, this is what is similar to Karachi in this city, and this is what it's not. This is why the women are riding on motorbikes, and that's not what we would find. And they cannot delve deeper into the issue.
Hmm.
So it's not just equipment handling and ergonomics that we're talking about. You have to, like, same case. Let's say some celebrated documentary filmmaker, old school documentary filmmaker like the late Ubaidullah Beg. He would go there and he would have a historical perspective of what was happening in Far East when we were fighting for our independence, and that would make a better and a more interesting, lot more knowledge imparting
Hmm.
narrative.
Yeah.
But then he would not know how to move as fast as these kids. So I think a good documentary crew would be somebody which is headed by Ubaidullah Beg, who has the knowledge and the historical perspective of the Far East. And you have a producer who is, somewhat, 35-year-old, and you have a crew that is as young as 20 years old. What I'm doing right now is making a dream team. My quarterback from
Yeah.
from the Dallas Cowboys, and my defense from the Cardinals, and from, you get my point. Like, if I have to
I'm,
make a dream
I'm
team.
actually a little impressed by the NFL reference, so thank you for that as well.
Yeah, I mean, you get my point. That it's just,
Yeah.
if you that would be a very, and if you look at it, what David Attenborough is doing. I mean, he is somebody who's the heart and soul. He's so passionate about so the reason his documentaries are so good is because the heart is set in the right place. What he talks about, he has lived that thing.
Yeah.
And greatest video cinematographers and documentary cinematographers work for him,
Hmm.
and they are people who are in their 30s and 40s.
Yeah.
And the editors are those who are, people with energy, who are being told, so they get to hear the story first, and then they edit the story for us.
Hmm.
What I'm trying to say, that it's a mix. If you look at his crew, it's a mixed bag of people from different age group and different walks of life. Not walks of life, but different age groups. Same field, but different age groups.
Yeah.
So you get my point. I think what
Yeah. And this actually gets me to wonder is I'd like to hear your opinion on what mentors can do to change this narrative a little bit. I'm sure you mentor many kids and many professionals also, and you have been for a while. Um, and I feel that you are also personally um, trying to make sure that this space altogether is a lot more conducive and it is a lot more friendly, and that there's people are learning from each other constantly as well. You accept one
Yeah,
another's just to also accept one another's strengths.
Mentoring in my strictly in my field is mentoring. The best students that I've come across, the one that I really that I like to believe that I mentored, or they have very generously said that, oh, he was our mentor when we were studying. I did not teach them anything. I did not teach them anything because when I saw them, they knew about filmmaking. I know this. That's that's the most straight and the most direct way I can say that. I mean, they. I'll tell you who. I'll give the names like Asad Faruqi,
Hmm.
who Asad Faruqi was when I met him at film school when I was teaching him. He says that I mentored him. I don't think I mentored him. He knew about filmmaking. Uh, the emotion of filmmaking, the emotion of narrative, the emotion, the connection that the lens has to make with the subject in front of the lens, that sense was already there in his heart and in his head. It was already there. All I did was I showed him a film by Errol Morris, and I showed him the film by Ziga Vertov, um, and I showed him a film by a few more films, for a few more Russian films, and he was on his way. He just needed what the mentoring that I did was that I told him that yes, you sir are a filmmaker. That's it. He was already on his way. Amna Sumru for as a matter of fact, she made that film, and I remember telling her that when she showed the film, I said, "Thank you for making this film. Thank you for making this film. Now this film exists, and thank you." I cried watching her film. I actually cried watching it. It was a graduate film.
Wow.
It brought me to tears because I was so happy that she made that film. And I saw her not as a and I treated I always understood that she is not a student that I'm teaching. That's a very uh, and it would have been an idiotic notion. I never taught her. I celebrate film with her. So when I would put up a film and people like Amna Sumro and Gulzeb and uh, uh, I would be watching a film with friends, and that is if that is what you call mentoring. I think mentoring is a very fancy word for that.
Hmm.
If there's a filmmaker who you know that this person has can tell stories through just visuals, you just have to assure them that yeah, you're on the right track, buddy. You're on the right. You're on the right. You're on the right डब्बा. आप इस ट्रेन के सही डब्बे में चढ़े हैं और आप सही रास्ते पे ये ट्रेन वहीं जा रही है जहाँ पे आप पहुंचना चाहते हैं. And that's it. That's all you need. And just celebrate cinema with them. Whenever you watch a good film, see it with them. Pass the DVD to them or send the link to them. Or if you're going to watch that film in the cinema, just tell them that I'm going to watch that film. You come and say, no, I can't come. Say, okay, fine. You know what? I'm going to go there. That film is there till that date. Go and watch that film. Just celebrate cinema with them. That's all you need. That's all you need. There's nothing much. There's nothing more that you can do because that person will have to fight for his cinema, for his narrative, for his or her narrative to come across. And that is the life that he or she has to live. And there's nothing more that you can do. All you can do is that, yes, I'm a witness to that. I'm witnessing your life unfold. And I know that you are there. That's it. Just as they would do that to you.
Yeah. Wow. That's brilliant. And that's also a very that actually would take me into the next set of questions, which is all around culture. What you just spoke about was also not about saying what's right or wrong, but it's about celebrating. It's about encouraging as well, right? It's about making sure that if you need to give someone a pat on the back, you can give that pat on the back as well. And if you need to call
Yeah.
out someone's bluff, there's no hesitation in calling out the bluff. Um,
Yeah.
and I feel that that type of mindset does not really come into the Pakistani work culture. Um, And my personal opinion on the Pakistani work culture is that it's very top down. If there's a particular mindset at the senior management or at the upper management, then, and if there's toxicity up there, that's exactly what's going to travel down. What do you feel like? And in particular in your industry, what is the work culture like?
Work culture, right? Not just in our field. I think we as a nation, we as people, we as Pakistanis, we work because of necessity. We work because we have to work. If you don't have to work, we won't work. So define work for your own self. Before we can get into this thing, we have to define as to what is work for us. I do my work because I have to earn money. Yeah, I earn money out of my work. I earn a living out of my work, and my work helps me pay the bills, children's school fees, blah blah blah. But let's just say that all the dues are paid because of some property that I have in Bahria town, and it's paying the bills. I would still do this because it defines me. We are a we are a poor nation, not because we don't have money. We are a poor nation because we are intellectually very poor. I'm sorry, I'm saying it really bluntly, and this may hurt, or but I don't mean to sound insulting. What I'm trying to say is that we do not strive for a higher ground. I'm not saying that to achieve that higher ground or to have a to be upar se aana, मैं वो नहीं कर रहा हूँ. At least strive for a higher ground. Um, take passion in your work. It's okay to invite passion into your work, whatever you do. Take a plumber, a carpenter, or a darzi, for example. They don't put passion in their work. As a nation, we are just there are very few people that I've come across who do it because they want to do it. They not just because they earn money out of it, but they really want to do this thing. So if that is some if that notion, and if we recognize this notion, and if we recognize this issue, and if we pour that issue and approach the answer to your question, that work ethics, if it's just top down, obviously people who are educated, who have a better understanding, that you in order to get better results, you have to be passionate about your work. But I'm not interested in us getting results. I'm just interested in having that passion. I just want to practice it right. I'll give you an interesting take. I was shown a film, Birth of a Nation, which was shot by Billy Blitzer, cinematographer, and D.W. Griffith was a filmmaker. Birth of a Nation was released in 1915, I think. I could be wrong, and it was it was it is believed that film is the reason why Hollywood progressed so much in terms of technology. Uh, the camera was moving. Before that, camera would not move. Camera would be static. Camera was moving. There were action sequences. It was an epic level film. It had the cinematography was light years ahead of its time. The action sequence is very swift. You know what the film is about? The film is about the triumph. It was about Civil War, in American Civil War, and how the South was defeated because of the cunningness of the Unionists, and how slavery was actually better for America, and how the formation of KKK saved the soul of the American dream. So the Ku Klux Klan are the heroes in that film, and the Yankees are the villains, and the black are evil people who should be enslaved. That is the subject. And film was a huge at that age. That film made $1 million, which was a huge amount of money. Huge amount of money. The politics of that film was completely, utterly wrong. And now when you look at that film, you say, "Oh my God, what a horrible notion!" But everybody recognizes the technologically advancement of that film, as to how advanced that film was. D.W. Griffith was driven by, he was a racist, and he had a very warped uh, a warped way of looking at his country, and how the politics of the country. His politics was completely wrong, but he was so passionate about making this film, and you can't take that away from him. I'm not saying that you have to uh, whatever you do, you have to put passion to. You have to be. I think that there are less people in this country who have this sentence will be taken wrong. I think there are less people in this country who have got OCD. You have to have OCD, a little bit of it, to be that reflects that how, like, I have OCD about my work. If the cut is not right, I will make my editor go over and over again. You have to get the audio right. You have to get the cut right. So I have OCD when it comes to my work. I have OCD when it comes to my shots. I have OCD when it comes to, you have to have passion about your work. And I think not because of the result and how people will take it, and it will get you better monetary reward, but because it just needs to be that way. It just needs to be better. I think the nation who do not strive for excellence. I'm not asking you to be excellent in a grand scale. Small thing that you do. If you sweep the streets, you should have a little bit of OCD. I left that patch. I need to clear that as well. I don't know if that making any sense.
It does. It makes complete sense. And I'd actually like to ask you, what do you think can be done to change that and to fix that?
Um, I think we are done. I mean, my age group is done. Whatever we are, and whatever we can be, we are done. And people who are ahead of us, we are done. But my son is 6 years old, and I can do something about him, and I can raise him differently, and I can tell him that it is absolutely important to to uh, to to whatever that he wants to do. I make sure that if this is what you want to do, you have to do it with passion, and it is absolutely important to speak the truth. And before you learn to speak the truth to others, you have to learn to speak the truth to yourself. You have to learn, because we have been shoving down this narrative to the young generation that always go for the new flashy toy. That is why you've got this whole Gen Z, which is wanting to be filmmakers. 10 years back, or well, in 20 years back, nobody was saying that you should be a filmmaker. In fact, anybody who was want to be a filmmaker was being shot at, like I was shot at by everybody in my family is either a doctor, or has got an MBA, or is a software engineer. I'm the only one who, because and I was like, if my cousins were a high school, the end of the year, what do you call that, the end of the year school book,
Yearbook,
uh,
yeah.
least likely to succeed and do good in life. Yeah, that was me. And to a certain degree, it's true, because all my cousins they're either in San Diego, or they're in Manchester, or they're in Dubai. They're doing really well, mashallah. They're doing great. But I think it's and their excellence in work has sort of like put passion into their work, and I'm glad that it works that way. But I'm old fashioned. It works linear fashion for me. You have to be passionate about your work. Only then you can produce excellence in that. Uh, I think it's important to be absolutely in love with what you do. And that is the only way you will be able to speak the truth,
Hmm.
because it will be imperative for you to speak truth. It will be imperative for you to be true, to be truth. Then you will know what the mechanics of the truth. सच ये नहीं होता कि आप जो बात है आप वो कह दें कि ये सच्ची बात है, नहीं ये सच बात है, नहीं वो तो रिलीजन से भी आपको मिल जाता है, और वो आपको वो चीज होती है, आपको मॉरल्स आता है. नो, इट्स लाइक when you, a story will ring true when what is being said is the ultimate truth. It will have that kick, it will have that sting,
Hmm.
and that is what you need to bring to when you're making a Saz Lahuga drama. You can make a very effective Saz Lahuga drama because uh, the actors that you cast were people who truly understand what is being said or have gone through that stuff. So you were very clever and you were truthful at that time in casting the right cast and not the popular cast, not the cast that had more Instagram likes, but the cast that was likely to deliver that mediocre line with such amazing passion that it started to ring true. This example of it.
Yeah, yeah.
Something as mediocre as making a hum TV play.
Hmm.
You
But
can put passion.
what do you feel universities can do? What is their role in this to bring that positive change?
Oh, they can do so much. There is so much that they're doing, which is so wrong. Uh, it is not a matter uh, of universities. When children are born, we we are all the time. Well, we live our lives in such a way that our houses are not even built for children. So the process starts by the time a child reaches the university or a professional outlet, professional outfit which dispenses professional studies. The child is done. He's skilled. He or she is completely done for. Our houses, our existence is not fit for children. We are constantly telling them, "Don't do this, don't do that, don't speak too loud." Right now, when we were doing this thing, my kid came in, and this thing is not designed for Murtaza, who's 5 years old, to come and show his head here and say hi and then go. I'm sure you would have been cool with it,
Yeah.
and we could have very easily edited him out. But our existence is not attuned for children. So the word no, and you can't do this and you can't do that, or you can't be in this room, and we are having a conversation. You have to keep your voice low and go play outside and do this thing. The barriers are put in as the foundation narrative in their lives. So when that starts to happen, when they get to the university, they're quite used to being told, no, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this, you can't think that way, you can't. So the universities, they just they need to, if they can, the question is what they can do. They can undo that process a little bit, and they can give that liberty back to them, back to the individual. Okay, you know what, you can do whatever that you want to do. uh, the first foundation here should just be about giving them a lot of um, sorry, I'm going to just go back and explain this. What
Yeah.
uh, our professional colleges are geared towards churning out professionals, and they are geared towards okay, by the end of these 5 years, he or she should be able to get a job in a channel, or he should be able to get a job at an ad agency. It should not be that way. When you go to a university in Iran, or you go to a film school in Russia, they don't let you near a camera for the first 2 years. They teach you philosophy, they teach you poetry, they teach you physics, chemistry, the very foundations of filmmaking. I had people who at my film school who had a better understanding. I was graduating as a cinematographer, and I had fellow students who had a better understanding of cinematography because they had studied optical physics and chemistry and physics. They had a better understanding. about cinematography because they were better in mathematics and they were not coming from an art school. What I'm trying to say is that you just teach them as much of foundational work as possible and give them as much of you teach them poetry and you let them make their own mind, because trust me, they are their mind is more fluid than us oldies, and they would come to a better. And don't be afraid, and don't feel that they are shaking the foundation when they're about to make. They'll make stupid decision and they will come to a better conclusion. So what the universities need to do is to give the power back to the student rather take the power away from them. That makes sense.
It does. It does. It's very interesting. And a follow up to that is to what all you just said. Is obsessing integral for success?
Yeah, yeah. It, it is. Um however, I have stopped obsessing, and I have discovered that the less when something is coming up, something is happening, I will obsess over it for a while, and then a time comes when I stop caring about it. I just let go, and uh, I don't kill myself over it. That is because That's because I'm old. That's because I think I know the obsessive me. So I have a better hold over my obsessiveness. I can I There is now a method to my madness. So but to in order to be successful, yeah, you have to obsess over it. Yeah, you have to little bit of it. I think the individuals out there. I'm not still talking about filmmaking and the practicing of media and education, but I think in other walks of life, people obsess less about their work.
Hmm.
People are dealing. We are Pakistanis are we are not exactly. I'll be blunt about it. We're not very hardworking people. We're not. We हमारे एक है एटीट्यूड कि यार हो जाएगा और हो जाता है काम तो हो जाता है लेकिन it you will never achieve that level of excellence. You'll always be looking at others and say, wow, they do it so nice and they do it so good. Why can't we do it? Why can't we do it this way? Because you don't care about that. You don't want to. You don't really need. You're not really hungry about it. You gotta be hungry about it. You really need to get it done. And there are individuals in our society who like out of 1,000 is one person there's one Adib Rizvi who's like, no, I want to get it right. And you just want to look at him and wonder, how does he do it? Well, for him, it's now
There's
it's
no
for
other
him.
option.
That's how he is now.
Yeah.
That's how he is. So
Interesting. Interesting. Najaf, this has been great so far. And just to wrap all of this up together, I have one last question for you, and that's it's hopefully it'll resonate with you a lot, considering your work is also very on ground and in the field,
yeah,
right? During the lockdown, everyone was forced to work from home. I know I spoke to some people who were working at different production houses, and they just said basically सैलरी आ रही है लेकिन काम का कोई अता पता नहीं है कि कब आने वाला
mm.
है एंड सीन क्या है बट how was it for you during this lockdown? How did you find yourself innovating with this new style of work, or what changes did you have to bring about to the environment around you or to the people around you?
Well, my meetings were on Zoom or long distance calls, mainly WhatsApp calls, and then they would WhatsApp me the script. I would read the script. I myself contracted COVID-19, and for 14 days, 15 days, I was quarantined, and I had the most amazing time because I don't know. I really enjoyed my lockdown, and whenever lockdown happens, I kind of enjoy it. I think there's way too much of interaction, and there's way too much of human contact in my field. What I really like is the distance away from people, so I'm alone with my script, and I have the mental space and the quiet to create the world that I need to create around myself in my virtual headspace. So during the lockdown, it did not affect my work, and I think when the lockdown was easing up, the work picked up. Obviously, respecting all the standard operating procedures, we were very careful. I remember I was doing a serial at that time, Hum TV serial, and we had some of the actors were above 70, so we had very strict SOPs. Um, but we pulled through. Um, and before that and after that, not meeting and having production meetings on Zoom, it was great actually. Saved a lot of time and instilled that notion which was always there, that you can save a lot of time, a lot of energy by you don't need to go and have a physical meeting. You can just have that meeting over here on your laptop and then get to the real work. The real work is you with your data, the story that you have, or the schedule that you have to make, or the wardrobe things that you have to design, or the set that you have to design, or the music that you have to compose. Uh, all of that is just between you and your work, and you don't need to be in a studio along with all those people, and you lose a lot of time in just talking to people, getting the coffee, going out for a smoke break. Oh, you can actually cut down, and it was a great learning curve, in my opinion, in my humble opinion. But yeah, when you have to shoot, man. You have to be with people.
To be there,
You
yeah.
have to. You have to. In my field, you can't deny that. There's no, you can't do a film on Zoom.
Yeah.
You can't do that. You have to be on a set.
Yes. Very true. Um, this was great, Najaf. Thank you so much for taking out the
It
time.
was great.
Are there any final remarks you'd like to share?
I'm
Any
just going to
other?
go through. I'm just going to go through or elaborate or just say that again to all. If this is being watched by the people the people who that the two people who I'm concerned, people who want to know what I do and who are my age and who want to know as to what I do and they expect me to tell them as what filmmaking is, and I'm through with them. I've tried to explain filmmaking and what I do, and they're so formed and set in their lives that they will always, when my definition of filmmaking will not match with theirs, they will be disappointed, and they will never let go of theirs and try to learn something new from a newer perspective. My concern is the generation which is coming up, and which can be salvaged and which can be taught. And I cannot stress more that if they think that this is filmmaking and being an actor and being a visual artist is a life of privilege, it is not. It is not a life of privilege. If you're coming into this field because you think that by doing this thing you will have it easy, buddy, that ain't happening. I cannot stress more. It is a life of physical and financial um, pain, and it is a spiritual struggle, and it's a emotional turmoil, constant. And if that thing, all of this thing, if that brings satisfaction to you, then this is the field for you. And if there is a little bit of that no, I can't live without financial stability, and I can't bear the stress of emotional and spiritual turmoil, then maybe this is not for you. Then maybe you should go into advertising, um, and maybe you need to do something else. So what I'm saying is that what I'm to all those people who are right now in the 18 and 20 years old, this is something you and leave it if you think that this is tough, leave it. Because but if you think that this is something which you really must do, you will not be complete without it. Think hard. Spend the next 5 years traveling. I think we Pakistanis don't travel that much because obviously our passport is like we don't need to travel. But travel as much in the country and travel to countries where you can travel, and you will find out if this thing is for you. You will the more the through suffering, through physical pain, you will understand what is passion. Somehow, I don't know, I have a feeling that if you travel a lot, you will understand. So what are you passionate about? You get to know more. The more you spend time alone doing something, you will tap into what you really want to do, what you really want to do. And trust me, what you really want to do is not procure two plots in Bahria town and having a weasel. And that's not it. That happens. That will come to you. Don't worry about it. That will come to you. But what is more important is that what you will leave behind in this world. That's the most important thing. So थोड़ा सा
That was
preachy हो गया. I'm
great.
sorry,
That was brilliant. That
but
was
I'm
brilliant.
sorry.
No,
With
no,
this beard on, that's what that that's what you'll get.
it was great. I just wish that you had like a jubba on and like a topi.
I do wear a jubba.
Acha.
No, I don't actually. I'm wearing
Uh-huh.
shorts right now, and I put on this shirt. No, but the thing is that it's leave behind something which is more permanent, and that is if you leave behind a film, a novel, um, a greatly, I mean, amazingly architected building. Uh, I don't know, something which people can read, consume, and be with, and will be there for all time to come. Isn't that what you should be striving for? Or leave behind something which is helpful to others, so others can build upon it.
Yeah.
That's what's going
Like,
to matter.
yeah.
Because as Anthony Hopkins says, we are not getting out of this alive. We're all going to die.
Mm,
Nobody's going to live forever. So yeah,
yeah. This was great, Najaf. Thank you so much for that. Those
it
final
was a
words
pleasure.
were the kicker. Um, Mr. Najaf Bilgrami, once again, thank you for taking out the time.
No, thank you, thank you.
And I hope for all those watching and listening, you managed to get some value out of this as well. At the end of the day, Mike's On is designed to say the unsaid about what's happening in business, what's happening in multiple industries. And Najaf just shared his take on what's
I
happening on
tell
this.
you, the ones who will understand what I'm trying to say, already knew this. As Noam Chomsky said, that you're born with all the learnings within your heart and soul, and you read and learn just to be clear about it.
Mhm.
So the ones who really truly understand this thing, they already knew this, and they're on the right track. And we as people should not get in the way. We should not bog them down with, oh, you have to get a plot, and you have to marry, and you have to do all these things to to get by in this world. No, don't. We should not be in their way. Just let them work. That's more
Brilliant,
important.
brilliant, brilliant.